Good morning, everyone. I will call this regular meeting of Council of the Municipality of Jasper to order for October 1st. Welcome councillors and administrative staff to our first in-person meeting since July 16th of this year. Welcome to residents in the gallery joining us today, and welcome to all of those people who are joining us on our Zoom platform. Councillors, I presume that due to the fire or perhaps other causes, I no longer have a microphone that can cut any of you off. That is not licensed to run on at will. Councillors, you have today's proposed agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or other changes to be made to the agenda? Councillor Callahan.
I'd like to ask for the camera, video and video.
We could add that as agenda item 9.2, and we'll call upcoming events 9.1. Any other proposed changes to the agenda? Nothing from administration, Mr. Gidding? I will take that as a motion then from Councillor Keller-Grantley that the agenda be amended to renumber upcoming events as agenda item 9.1 and to add agenda item 9.2, an in-camera session. And the report that will be based on land? Legal, I'm sorry. With that motion, all those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. And may I have a motion then to approve the agenda for today's meeting as amended? Councillor Melnick, thank you. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. We have, of course, the regular minutes of the regular meeting of September 24th, 2024. Are there any errors, omissions, or corrections required to be made to those minutes? If not, I would look for a motion, please, to approve the minutes of the September 24, 2024 regular council meeting as presented. Deputy Mayor Demota, thank you for that. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. That takes us to agenda item 4, delegations. We have no delegations scheduled. We have residents in the gallery. This is the time when those in attendance can speak to council if they wish on any matter on the agenda for a period of 2 minutes. We always prefer that arrangements be made in advance, and we welcome them. However, we understand that that's not always possible for those who choose to attend. We offer that opportunity. I don't see any movement in the gallery. Mr. Butler.
Thank you.
We can.
Very much. I appreciate the opportunity on schedule as it was. Of course, things move fast with weekend meetings, so thank you very much. Really, I want to bring council's attention only to one issue. It is at least tangentially, if not directly, related to the today's agenda. My organization, Jasper, our Chamber of Commerce, businesses and residents alike are frankly really concerned to make sure that we have a ski season. If we don't have a ski season, I don't want to contemplate the consequences of that. I have recently learned that there appears to be not anything like enough staff accommodation available for the staff required to run the hill, never mind services beyond that, visitor services beyond that. I know that there has been some discussion about this. We're going to need help. We, the community, we, the business community, and Marmot Basin as an organization to find arrange some housing, and it really needs to happen by the 1st of December. There appears not to be funding available. The upset cost to set up a camp of some sort is prohibitive. But to be fair, Marmot Basin can't be expected to shoulder that alone. They are prepared to partner, work together. I've been brought in just this weekend on that conversation, and the chamber also is willing to work collaboratively to find funding, to figure out something that will work. I wish I could suggest more than figure out something that will work at this point, but this is of course a fast rolling ball. Marmot Basin is also willing to work with other partners, including the municipality or the JRCC, to provide housing well beyond its own needs to run its operation. So my purpose here today is really just to alert council to this huge concern, to make sure it's on the agenda for further discussion. I'm not saying today, but absolutely next week. And say that we have to find some funding somewhere to help make this happen. Not having a ski season cannot be contemplated. So I really think that's about all I have and wanted to offer today. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thank you for that, Mr. Butler, and I will find a way to agree that that is at least tangentially related to something on the agenda. But we appreciate the serious nature of restarting our economy, and Marmot Basin and the ski season was critical to that. Any questions for Mr. Butler related to the startup of our winter ski season? Go ahead, Councillor DeMond.
Well, I just wanted to say that when we were first getting together as council and discussing what is like a primary need in our community during recovery, and I think right across the board, I can't speak for everybody, but it was understood that like we need to get that ski hill open. I know that there are a lot of people working behind the scenes to get some type of housing. And there's a lot of us. It's not get on. Like a private focus on.
Go ahead, Councillor Calhoun.
Thank you, Mayor, and to Mr. Butler. Is there a subcommittee being formed through the chamber in order to work with municipality and the Alberta government?
Thank you, Councillor Keller MP. I am meeting with Marmot Basin representatives this afternoon. Absolutely, we're forming a group, a committee, as whatever we would like to call it, to advance this. Letters are being prepared to go to the province to see if we can directly source funding. I think that looks difficult, as generally my understanding is that provincial funding is being channeled through the municipality. That's probably as it should be. But I expect we will be looking for cooperation and help from the municipality of JRCC. So I will, that's all to get back to you basis.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Island, and thank you, Mr. Butler, for coming today. And yes, I do agree with Councillor Demoda. This is something that was on our radar probably not a month and a half ago, but this is our heart has to be open. Do you have any idea of the cost of a camp of some kind or staff housing?
I wish I had more idea of the cost. Again, by early afternoon, I was actually out of town for the weekend, so I did what I could with telephone calls. The Marmot Basin does have some ideas, and they also have some scaling options to consider. They have some land. They don't have land. There is land that they are proposing could be used. And my understanding from what they've told me is that it could be done, in my opinion, on a timeline that would make sense. I suppose one of the difficulties we face is, again, I'm going only by what I've heard, but that the lands that JRCC is looking at making available for housing will not be ready in time to make something happen as quickly as would be needed to launch the ski season. But I think there are some other opportunities. I don't want to speak for others, so I won't raise that here.
I will say, I'll turn to you in a second, Councillor Miller. I have had conversations with Ms. Cullen on behalf of the proponents. It has gone to JRCC. Mr. Park is aware of it. I think it does just come down to financing, as you say, the offset costs. So, I can assure Council JRCC is aware of the issue and has been working in collaboration with the proponents, but it is a funding issue, and the municipality doesn't have that funding and hasn't been able to secure it as of yet from the province. Whether it will be able to or not remains to be seen, but certainly some calls can be made in that regard. We have a good relationship with the minister and with the province right now, so we can certainly advocate on behalf of the proponents, given the crucial nature of this particular housing to our winter requirement. Go ahead, Councilor Miller.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Mr. Butler, for coming to today's meeting and understanding that skiing is one of our key drivers during the winter season. I appreciate you bringing the housing issue to the table here. At another meeting and another opportunity, it'd be good to understand the magnitude of what existing housing is still available to Marmot Basin and how much additional housing is required relative to their total staffing requirement. I think that'll help us to assist in obtaining housing as much as we can, and to make sure that we do have a ski season. But I think we need to have a lot of detail about, you know, what is involved and how many housing units and what is existing, because we're also going to be balancing what's required in the entire community. Ski season is one part of it, a very important part of it, but there'll be other asks of other businesses as well to make sure that we're also able to accommodate workers. So I think it's important that we have a good global understanding of the housing requirement. But thank you very much for coming forward to the council today.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I apologize, Mr. Butler, for not properly addressing you. I forgot how comfortable I am working with you. I'm just curious, has the date been set for the first meeting of the Jasper Recovery Task Force? Do you have an idea? Maybe to administration? Sorry, the advisory committee. I apologize. Using old terms.
Your Worship, for Councillor Demoda, so the Jasper Recovery Coordination Center, the JRCC, is meeting regularly as the administrative arm. The Recovery Advisory Committee, we're still currently advertising for public members. I believe the Chambers confirmed their participation, as has Tourism Jasper. So I think a lot of our named organizations have committed. I know Director Park is looking to set up the first meeting of that advisory committee in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Mr. Butler, you indicated that a subcommittee is meeting this afternoon, or you're arranging at least a meeting with the proponent and various members of your organization. Would it be helpful to have somebody from either council or administration at that meeting?
I think it would. I was considering on the fly, wondering if council wanted to appoint a member of council to sit with us on an ad hoc basis at the moment while we formulating a plan and in fact formulating perhaps a group.
I appreciate that. We have, as Deputy Mayor DeMola just indicated, a recovery advisory committee, which has been struck, and have appointed councillors to that. So if those councillors might be available this afternoon, perhaps they could attend that meeting, I will allow you to share those details at another time, perhaps after this meeting, but those arrangements could be made, assuming that the members of that advisory committee can be available.
That would be good. Thank you very much. If those members could maybe contact me directly. I'm sorry, I don't know which members it is. Then I will. Okay, thank you very much. We'll share details on personal feeds. And Councillor Demota, I didn't hear you call me that, sorry. I'll hear his followers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Paul.
Thank you. Just a couple more questions. Does, to Mr. Butler, does the Ski Hill have an opening date? And I wonder if maybe we need to make a motion out of this, directing administration for advocacy around, I'm just wondering what council will that.
I would anticipate that we are already engaged in advocacy and don't need another motion. And we have the advisory committee already struck its, as you indicated earlier, the central component of our recovery. So I appreciate the thought, but I think we're covered and I think we understand our need for engagement. And as I said, JRCC is already engaged, so we don't need a further push.
I believe Marmot has set a soft opening date, but I also know that they are actually in the process of considering whether they're going to be open at all because be able to open.
Thank you very much. Mr.
Thank you so much for hearing me today.
We turn to new business and to my surprise, I have just been informed that I have a bit of a family emergency happening. I'm going to relinquish the chair, Deputy Mayor. I apologize for the lack of notice, but emergency don't come with notice sometimes. So I will be forced to depart and I will be back just as soon as I can.
All right. Appreciate that. So we're on new business and we'll start off new business with item 6.1, transit services update, CAO given.
Thanks very much, Deputy Mayor Demota. Just make sure that I'm organized here. Thank you. So council, trying to get back to some of our regular routines. This update follows the format that we've established previously for transit updates that we had hoped to do them quarterly. But obviously we missed the end of the last quarter as a result of the emergency and the evacuation. So you'll see that the attachment follows the typical operational update where we highlight some major projects, the service statistics for the period, and this period runs from April 1st to July 22nd. And then provide some tables and information on communications and engagement. Obviously, a lot of that focus has been on the change to the system over the summer. But there is some interesting information now that we've actually been a year with transit in our community. The system provided service to just over 41,000 riders since its launch in September of 2023. And that is while recognizing that we were a month short since the service didn't operate for the entire month of August. And so that was good news. That's actually ahead of the forecasted number of riders, which would be 34,000 in the transit strategy and action plan. So even with a month less service, we were still ahead of the forecasted number of riders. The service was in fact relaunched on September 17th, where we launched regular scheduled service and school service. Administration is going to continue to monitor ridership. We have only a sort of a week of ridership data that we're able to present in the report here for you today. But we intend to continue to monitor, and we explicitly launched the new schedule as a recovery schedule, recognizing that as new housing comes on stream, and other factors come up, there will likely be a need to adjust the service. And so we're paying close attention to that and would be ready to make adjustments in the later winter season. We've also done a significant amount of work to ensure that in-service bus stops have updated QR codes that can take people to updated schedules, and the hotspot app for current service information and ticket options. It was unfortunate that prior to the evacuation, June was showing a strong start to the summer season. The June month actually showed total monthly ridership that exceeded that of September 2023, which was when we launched the service. That was our previous strongest month. And council will remember that in September of 2023, the service was actually free. So the fact that we had a paying service and a higher number of riders, that looked really great for the summer season until. Financially, past sales for the period were just over $14,000. Of course, as council may have been aware, the Jasper Park Lodge signed on for our corporate bulk purchase agreement for a 2-year term. That will add about $60,000 in annual revenue. This was already expected in the transit budget. We had an area for corporate sales in there. And additionally, administration has requested $8,000 in lost revenue from the government of Alberta as a part of our financial stabilization request. So Deputy Mayor Demota, Council, the operational update is here for Council's information. I want to say thank you to the team that was able to restart the service, obviously our contractor, but we were also able to bring in some additional contracted resources because as Council knows, our transit lead is also our utilities manager. And he was very busy ensuring that the town site had a water system set up and ready to go. And we were able to call on another local contractor who has transit experience, who was able to actually work with our service provider in setting up the schedule, working with the school boards, and making the arrangements to get the system up and running. And without her support, we wouldn't have been able to get where we are. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gibbon. Councillors? Go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Demota, and Mr. Gibbon. And the 60,000 for Jasper Park Lodge is about 30,000 within the 2024 budget, and then 30,000 for 2025, or is all in the 2024? And my second question on that is, with so many of the staff not returned to JPL, do we have to return some of those ball passes?
Deputy Mayor Demota for Councillor Keller MP. So the program is actually with our corporate bulk purchase program, with our very large employers that have fluctuating seasonal employment. We settle on an average employment number and then just provide their employees, as they fluctuate throughout the year, all of the employees get passes. So it's not a matter of getting a number of passes and giving them out because we recognize again with those large employers the number of staff fluctuates. The agreement is a 2-year term and it started for June, and so it run 2 years of Junes. So June 2026 is when it would expire, and so they're paying on a monthly basis.
Thank you. And I just one more question. So when the transit wasn't working this past summer, did PWT give us a credit, or did we have to pay the contractor at that time?
We are working through that. We do have a contract with a minimum number of hours. We were looking at ways that we could use some of those hours, which we were able to do over the course of the summer, even though the system was down, we were able to use it for some internal needs. And we wanted to ensure that the contractor had some of the base costs covered. We are working through the balance with them to ensure that it's something that works out appropriately for the municipality as well as for the provider, given that they had underlying costs. We had a contract for minimum number of hours. We want to find a resolution that balances the municipality's expenses with those of the contractor. We went to the government to request that financial stabilization to recognize that we had that loss of revenue and had ongoing expenses that would exist.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other councillors? Councillor Malik. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Dakota. I'm glad to see we have the new fully accessible buses with bicycle racks. I guess that occurred in the last 3 or 4 weeks or so. I personally haven't seen one yet, so I'm looking forward to seeing that particular unit and how it's operating. I see also in the report that we have the transit facility, the construction is underway and that we expect to be completed by, looks like end of first quarter of 2025. And that would be with the facility that was presented to council with 6 bays. Is that what, I just want to be clear about when we talk about a transit facility, with or without electrification, and also is it the shell of the building? I know we did commit last July, I believe, to the spine of the building, the prefab that had to be done. So I just want to get a better understanding of the construction and what's underway of the facility will receive.
Sure. Deputy Mayor Demota for Councillor Melnick. So the facility is under construction, and that process has started. The building permits have been issued and the contractors mobilized. The prefabrication has been in production and would be, if it hasn't already been, will be delivered to site soon. The facility itself is essentially 2 doors, if you want to think of it that way, with space for up to 6 buses inside. Sort of nose to nose, so three per row is the concept. It has expansion capability if at some point the municipality needed to add a 3rd door or a 3rd lane, I guess, if we just describe it that way. And so it's designed to be able to expand. It also has a small office space and space for drivers, and washroom facility, that kind of thing. So that facility will be fully completed by the late spring of next year.
Thank you for that.
Do you need any more follow-up, Councillor Melnick? No? Any other councillors have questions on this? Right. May I have a motion that council receive the transit services update April to September 25, 2024 for information? Councillor Hall. Call it to question. All in favor? None opposed, that motion is carried. I pass the chair back to you, Your Worship. Oh, I did want to say, you said 2 months of June's earlier, and I said, I wish that could happen because summer solstice is one of my favorite days of the year. If we could have 2 of those, it'd be great.
And none of us would mind going back to June.
Oh, sure.
All right, thank you, Deputy Mayor Demota. That takes us to agenda item 6.2. Disaster Recovery Program Submission and Joint Recovery Coordination Center Operation Budget. Mr. Gibbon, you were dealing with that presentation.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Director Park is engaged in some other events with GRCC this morning, and so I'm going to be presenting on his behalf. We're here with a recommendation that Council authorize the Director of Recovery to make expenditures within the amounts approved under the Disaster Recovery Program, and the Council direct administration bring forward updates to policy B109 to provide differential spending authority for the Director of Recovery. Administration is bringing forward these recommendations to support recovery and support quick action in some uncertain circumstances. As council knows, the municipality is pursuing financial assistance through the Alberta Disaster Recovery Program. We made a preliminary submission to the program on August 9th. That preliminary submission was for approximately $47 million, and as council is aware, that preliminary submission was approved. The state of local emergency that was authorized by the Emergency Advisory Committee of Council ended on September 15th. And on September 20th, the advisory committee authorized an updated submission to DRP with a total of just over $73 million. At the time, the EAC, the Emergency Advisory Committee, passed a motion to recommend that council authorize the Director of Recovery to make expenditures within approved amounts under the Disaster Recovery Program application. So in essence, the committee said that the director should be able to spend funds that were brought forward under the DRP application, and where those funds were approved by the government of Alberta for the program. The intent is to ensure that we have some council authorization to expend funds. The 109 typically guides the municipalities' procedures around financial and fiscal controls. But obviously the current situation wasn't contemplated in that policy. The typical approach for the municipality with respect to budgeting would be the development of a detailed budget, which would be presented to council ultimately for authorization. And then even approved budget items would require specific authorization on different projects. The director has had to act obviously very quickly. And in the context of a state of local emergency, the authorization for administration to spend funds is quite clear. When the state of local emergency ended on September 15th, that became less clear. And so the advice that administration and the recommendation that administration gave to the Emergency Advisory Committee was the approach that you're seeing here. The Emergency Advisory Committee supported that approach and is recommending that council support it. But it is a question for council to consider. Administration wants to ensure that there's an appropriate process that ensures that there's transparency on decision-making. And that balances that need for transparency and oversight with the ability to act quickly and in a scenario where there's a fair bit of uncertainty about the types of projects and the specifics that are going to need to happen. So the approach here outlines what the expected expenditures are, is asking council to authorize spending within that envelope, subject to the DRP applications being approved by the government of Alberta. So at this time, the GOA has approved our initial application of $47 million, and that is in essence provides the director's sort of top end spending limit. Any other expenditures would be subject to the government of Alberta provide supporting the amended or the updated application from September. Additionally, administration wants to ensure that this process is as regularized as possible. Our suggestion would be that we should amend policy B109 to recognize differential spending authority for the director of recovery. Obviously, his area is going to move very differently from the rest of the municipal operation, and his expenditures are going to be directly linked to the DRP application in a way that the rest of the organization's expenditures won't be. So we would like a chance to bring forward a recommendation on how to amend that policy to give the director the spending authority that he needs. But at this time, our recommendation is that council provide that broad authorization for the director to make expenditures as long as they're within the approved DRP application amounts. Yeah, Your Worship, I'm happy to answer any questions. As attachments, you'll see the DRP project list submission that has the total of just over $73 million. Director Park provided some details on what's included there. And then you can see a comparison between the August 9th submission and the September 20th update. You can see that the major changes are really related to uninsurable infrastructure damage, as well as a small amount under other recovery costs. Again, happy to answer any questions that I'm able to.
Thank you for that report, Mr. Given. Questions from council? Deputy Mayor DeMoor.
for the sake of the members watching, now or maybe down the road, if this, doesn't get approved for that broad authority, my understanding is that any type of expenditure would have to come to council every week. Is that how I perceive it? Your worship, through to CEO Given.
Your worship, for Councillor Demoda, that's correct. And obviously, given the nature of how quickly conditions are changing, and the nature of the discussion between the government of Alberta, Parks Canada, and the municipality, those discussions are happening frequently, and they need ultimately a number of different levels of approval. Some require the support and approval of parks. Some require the support and approval of the government of Alberta, which ultimately goes through cabinet, and some require the approval of all three. And so you can see in that sort of circumstance, coming back to council, there may be items that we can't independently authorize. Items that have gone through the DRP application are explicitly authorized by the government of Alberta. And so that's where council can have the confidence that that level of oversight has been provided.
Thank you for that clarification. But again, like I say often, if there was any repetition caused by me there, I apologize, but I appreciate the clarity.
If I might just offer supplementary response to Mr. Given, you asked whether it would entail administration coming back weekly. There could be an alternative, which is they come back with a budget that we approve, and then directors can spend within budget, but that would be subject to even longer timelines and more uncertainty, I would think. But it wouldn't have to be a weekly thing, but it would at least have to be a budget thing. I can appreciate it. It is referenced in the request for decision that we simply don't have the capacity and resources to be doing the budget right now for all of this. Councillor Pellegrin.
Thank you, Mayor, and you to CEO Given. So the director would have either just to sign it off, or would it also go through you? Like, what's the checks and balances in case?
Your worship, for Councillor Keller MP. So the approvals have been made by the directors of recovery. So as a reminder to the community, as council is well aware, the JRCC is set up with joint leadership, having two directors of recovery, one from Parks Canada, one from the municipality. And similar to the incident where the incident commanders, the joint incident commanders, were authorizing, objectives and expenditures. That same approach is happening here. Again, the concept is that the scope is limited by the DRP application. So if it wasn't contemplated in the DRP application, if it isn't funded by DRP, hasn't been accepted by the government of Alberta, then it couldn't be expended. In terms of the financial sort of sign-offs, we are adding additional capacity to monitor and track. There's a position that council supported. My expectation would be that the invoicing would follow the same process that regular municipal invoicing does, that requires sign-off from either the director of finance or the CAO and a member of council. So you would ultimately see all of those payments in a regular process.
Yeah, this one. And at the end of the year, will this be part then of our general audit?
Your worship, for Councillor Keller MP, I don't know. I would expect as much, but we haven't had a chance to sit down with the auditor through that. This is one of those types of situations. This is an example of the general weirdness and challenge that comes with this type of scenario. I would imagine that it would be. I know that other municipalities have gone through this, so there's an answer to that question. I just don't know it right now. So that's something that we will follow up on.
Thank you for that. I just think it's important that, you know, it's public money regardless of whether it's municipal or Jasper, Alberta, or the federal, it's taxpayers' money. And I think, you know, it's very important that we have the proper mechanisms in place so that it ultimately, in the end, mayor and council is responsible for the audit at the end of the year through administration. So therefore, you know, I'd be a lot more comfortable if I was known that at the end of the year, that these funds were being audited.
Thank you, Councillor Keller, Councillor Wilson.
In the DRP submission summary sheet, the update September 20th, there's $20,000, $20 million allotted to uninsurable infrastructure damage to buildings. Yet we didn't, I don't think, have damage or loss of buildings. $20 million is big ticket. Could you speak what that $20 million is being applied to?
Your worship, for Councillor Wilson, that $20 million is in essence a contingency, specifically related to any responsibility that the municipality or the incident team may have related to private property and uninsurable loss on private properties. So it is a contingency amount. It is specific to some specific properties, generally in the commercial area. Actually exclusively within the commercial area. It is a holding amount to recognize that there may be claims made against the municipality for actions we took or did not take. And we wanted to ensure that that is recognized as we go forward with the government of Alberta, because that would not be something that would be insurable by us. So it is by definition uninsurable infrastructure damage.
On that same point, does that contingency cover an allowance for business interruption loss?
Your worship, given the nature of discussions on this point, if the council wanted to ask additional questions, my suggestion would be that we should have Director Fark here, and that would likely be an in-camera discussion. These are likely areas where they may be subject to legal proceedings.
Thank you. Councillor Keller.
Just for transparency for council and the community, would we be receiving some type of financial that's open for council to see on a monthly or quarterly basis?
Your worship, for Councillor Callahan, thanks for raising that. I think that that's a completely reasonable expectation. I think we can have a discussion with Director Fark about what would be a reasonable reporting timeline. Obviously, we're still staffing up the administrative resources for finance for the GRCC haven't actually been established yet. We're still, I think Director Fark is going to be interviewing for positions this week. I can certainly raise that, talk with our Director of Finance, the new finance for GRCC, and the directors of recovery, and identify what an appropriate sort of schedule would be. I'm certainly happy to take council's feedback. My suggestion off the cuff would be that quarterly would be most likely. Monthly might be challenging, but I will take that back and see what the rest of the admin team thinks.
Councillor Melvin.
Thank you, Your Worship. The province did announce that they contributed $149,000 towards, $149 million towards Jasper's recovery. And just so that everyone understands, the 73 million is, call it our initial ask against that 149 million. So there isn't two pools of funds here. There's 149 million that was announced for Jasper that this will cover, and then there'll be other funds available for future efforts to rebuild.
Your worship, for Councillor Malik, I appreciate you raising that as council's aware, there's a couple different layers within there. And I think the announcement from GOA, could easily be misinterpreted by members of the public. The Government of Alberta announcement, if we take it in thirds, sort of roughly speaking, 1/3 was to support the municipality's initial request under DRP for $47 million. 1/3 was an acknowledgement of internal Government of Alberta expenses and costs related to the incident, so across different departments of governments, the municipality wouldn't see that third. And 1/3 was essentially a contingency because there's an expectation that the municipality would have an updated application, and that there may be other costs that the GOA hadn't seen. So that $149 million or $140-some million that was recently announced, 1/3 was to satisfy the municipality's August 9th submission. And that's the money that's coming directly to Jasper. The other amounts were not being forwarded to Jasper specifically, although that final third or the contingency amount, maybe. The other areas where there are ongoing discussions that would be outside of the DRP application include the municipality's request for financial stabilization. Council approved that submission, and that's gone forward to government. My understanding is the GOA is reviewing that request, and hopefully we'll have news soon. But that is outside of DRP. Also outside of the DRP request is the interim housing or the housing for residents over. That entire discussion is outside of the DRP application. What is inside of the DRP application is the housing that we've established for classes of workers that were identified ahead of time, pre-approved by the Government of Alberta, and are being housed in hotel properties here in Jasper. That's approved up until November 30th, and that's inside of DRP. So that longer term housing is a different discussion that would be handled outside the DRP.
Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. Through you to CEO Given, can you explain to me, please, evacuation costs? I'm assuming that's Red Cross centers, potentially the money evacuees would have been direct deposited, et cetera.
Thanks very much for the question. So, Your Worship, for Councillor Hall, so in the submissions, you'll see back to August 9th, had just over $22 million under evacuation costs. These are costs related to the housing and meals for evacuees in Grand Prairie, Edmonton, and Calgary. So we certainly appreciate the support of all of those municipalities in standing up operations. And they may have done that in the case of Grand Prairie and Calgary using municipal employees. In the case of Edmonton, the city of Edmonton used Red Cross as a contractor to run those operations. Those operations come with expenses, and the provincial system is that the host municipality can claim those expenses, which the municipality with the evacuation then submits under DRP. So that $22 million was the cost of housing Jasper evacuees, housing and feeding Jasper evacuees for the time of the evacuation.
Other questions? Councillor, or pardon me, Deputy Mayor at the moment?
I'm assuming, if it happens, that any expenditures that haven't been used come with the condition that they have to be given back to the province.
Your Worship, for Councillor Demoda, so the province, will, there is a schedule of when they make the payments under DRP. Obviously, our first application has been accepted, and they'll forward those funds. I don't know yet whether they've actually been forwarded to us. On a go-forward basis, we're going to be working closely with the government on what the sort of confirming the expenditures along the way, and working closely with the departmental staff that are specific to the DRP program. So the Government of Alberta has field officers that are the experts in DRP. They have been embedded with us since the start of the incident, really. And Director Park and our finance team will continue to work with them. And we are essentially getting pre-approvals for expenditures by going and saying, okay, this is the expenditure that we're proposing. Can the government of Alberta confirm that that's DRP eligible? Government of Alberta will come back and say, yes, we expect that to be DRP eligible, and then we move forward with it. In terms of excess funds, I don't expect that we'll have excess funds, but I also believe that there will be sort of this ongoing approval and remittance back to the municipality. And in the end, as council is well aware, under the legislation, there is a requirement for the municipality to contribute 10%. The way the legislation is set up, the municipality doesn't need to come up with the, so to speak, the cash to make a payment to the government of Alberta for the 10%. Essentially, the government of Alberta, at the end of the program, which could be 5 years from now, would pay costs up to 90% of the total costs, and the municipality would be responsible for that final 10%. So I don't expect that there'd be, it's not the government of Alberta giving us $73 million that sits in our bank account. It is the government of Alberta sort of helping us pay the bills along the way. And then at the end, they would sort of pay up to that 90% under the legislation.
Thank you, if I may finish. I appreciate, hearing those steps and just to add clarity, I'm just trying to lead with an attitude of healthy skepticism, right? So, and I think a lot of the conversation here, considering the gravity of that dollar value, is really healthy, and I really appreciate the questions, and I appreciate your answers, because, it's, sometimes just asking a question where, you might know the answer already to, we get detail like that, and I think it's important for the community members to know. Thank you.
Councillor Keller.
Thank you, Mayor, and Chief Mr. Gibbons. So if I understand this correctly, the municipality will pay the majority of the bills, and then we will put an application into the, to be funded kind of on a couple of month basis, that sort of thing, am I correct?
Your worship, that's correct.
The only reason I asked that was the other day, I sent a lot of checks, and I had some things to have the same question, so I was just confirming.
Thanks for covering. It's heavy.
Councillor Wise.
If there are no further questions, oh, go ahead. I'm happy to make the motion, but.
Just before you do, I did want to ask Mr. Gibbon about the recommendations. In addition to bringing forward proposed amendments to policy B109, has administration considered whether it would be prudent to also amend at least section 4.6 of the emergency management bylaw? So the Emergency Advisory Committee is delegated the authority under a state of, well, first to declare the state of local emergency, and under that to direct or authorize some expenditures, and at the conclusion of the Emergency Advisory Committee is clearly authorized to approve the application for the disaster relief program. But less clear is any continuing authority with respect to expenditures. And that just seems to be a bit of an oversight, and I appreciate when that bylaw was crafted and voted on. We had never had an emergency and didn't know what to expect, but we are left now with potentially a bit of a ambiguity and maybe a gap. And so I wonder whether there would be any benefit in addition to updates to policy B109, updating the emergency management bylaw to better clarify the role of the Emergency Advisory Committee after the state of local emergency is removed, but while the emergency still continues. And we discussed that briefly, and I can confirm for council that the Emergency Advisory Committee has met on this and did approve the submission to the DRP, but found ourselves in a bit of a of a gray area with respect to authorizing any continuing improvement. So I just invite administration to consider whether an amendment to that particular section of the bylaw might be warranted.
Your worship, administration can certainly review that, and that's a part of the reason why we're here today. In the absence of any sort of clear authority, once the emergency had ended formally by the end of the state of local emergency, we wanted to ensure that there was some documentation in support of a future audit. As Councillor Kelleher brought up, that administration had sought approval from some part of the municipal organization. And so that started with the submission of the DRP application. So the Emergency Advisory Committee has that authority under the bylaw. What was less clear, as his worship said, was, okay, so now once the state of local emergency ends, who has that authority? And in the absence of anything else, the suggestion is that the council has that authority, and that's why we're here today. So we could make that more clear within the bylaw, but that isn't a barrier to the council's decision making today. I think that would be I think we will have a number of items that we will have an opportunity to revise our approach to disaster management or emergency management. This is a good example of probably just one out of many. Your worship, I think what would be most likely is sometime next year reviewing the emergency management bylaw. So that we could capture a whole bunch of these learnings all at the same time and make sort of any other larger changes that we needed to make, rather than doing sort of a number of successive changes.
Thank you for that. Councillor Nolan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry for the late question, but just for my own clarity, the expenditures under the disaster recovery program are to bring the municipality back to an operating standard that we were at before the emergency, and is not intended for new projects or other possible projects within the community. This funding is meant to reestablish us to a ground zero, call it, or where we were before the fire.
Your worship, for Councillor Malik, so certainly it doesn't, the program is not intended to broadly support betterments. There is a category, and I'm just not drawing the name off the application, but there is a category for proactive measures the municipality might take to prevent a future such emergency. That is sort of things that arose that the municipality can say, okay, we should do these things to be better prepared, sort of preparedness activities. And I just can't for the life of me remember the line that it says on the application. But we don't have a significant amount of activities that we see under that. Mitigation projects, there you go. It's actually in the documents that I said. In attachment 2, you can see that there's a space for mitigation projects. That might be in the area of betterment. We are not proposing any at this time. You know, the DRP app program, I think it's fair to say that it's largely focused on floods, given the Southern Alberta floods in 2013. And a lot of the mitigation projects that arose out of that were specifically flood mitigation projects. There may be things that arise that we might like to put in there, but at this time, administration isn't proposing any. So if the municipality wants to do new things that are unrelated to the emergency to make our community better, then those are likely things that we would need to do on our own and from the support of the local tax base, rather than by relying on the DRP program to do things that we hadn't considered before that are just for the general benefit of the community and betterment.
Thank you. And just again going, what is intended with the DRP and what's not intended. On page 2 of the report, in the first full paragraph, the DRP does not include the municipal revenue stabilization, which is our application to try to replace revenues that we won't normally be able to have. And also, this program does not deal with temporary housing.
That's correct, Your Worship.
Deputy Mayor DeMora.
First of all, I just wanted to say that I appreciated your insight earlier on that question that you asked, and that was a very important and tangibly related topic. So that I appreciate that insight, and it, you know, a lot of times just like reflects your reality. I think my question is somewhat related to the question that Councillor Melna just asked, and some of the answers that you gave on mitigation. You know, fire being a different element than water. I'm just wondering if there's other areas that we can explore. I know that Parks Canada is working on some projects to future mitigate issues on the backbench in the west area of town. But I mean, I think, are there opportunities available down the road? And once we approve this, does that keep us from asking for mitigation money down the road? Or is it like, this is what you asked for, this is what you're getting within the submission?
Your worship, for Councillor Demota, so we would be able to revise our application. I would have to check the regulations to be able to identify specifically when it would be closed off, but it is a ongoing discussion between the GOA and the municipality. We're likely to be related to them for, you know, a period probably exceeding 3 years. Imagine it'd be closer to 5 years by the time we do reconciliation and all these things. Sometime within that period, the sort of all of the needs and you know, and requirements and expenses would be, you know, known to a great extent. And that at that time, the application would be closed off. I can't say off the top of my head exactly when it is. But I suspect it isn't now, and it isn't with the $70-some million. There will be additional things that will come, so we may have some opportunity to do that. At this time, administration hasn't surveyed to identify additional mitigation activities that would be required, particularly within the town site. And I think that's the important thing here is, you know, the DRP application, the municipalities sort of work is broadly contained within the town site, the urban area of the municipality. And I'm not certain that there are a lot of mitigation activities that we take within the town site. Obviously, we have a long history of previous municipal investment in fire smarting. We worked with Parks Canada on that, a collaborative effort where we'll get economies of scale and being able to do more work by joining our work within the town site and outside the town site. We've been doing that for over a decade. So some of those mitigation efforts are things the municipality was already doing. There may be additional things that might arise, but at this time, administration hasn't identified any.
Councillor Keller.
Thank you, Mayor, and I have one more question, Mr. Chairman. So in this budget, we've hired all these, we say 20 positions, let's say, will more positions be hired, and if they are, will that come through council, or will that just come through the direction?
Your worship, for Councillor Keller, MP, as we've done with any positions that are being proposed to be added to the municipal staff, we will always seek council approval for that. So there won't be any positions that are under the municipality that would be added without council approval. I do want to make clear, though, that the JRCC has many, many more staff than there are municipal staff contributed. Parks Canada has contributed a very significant number of staff, and they're going to be there on an ongoing basis. So council may see that the staffing size of the JRCC is larger than the positions that council has approved, and that's because there are contributed resources coming from our partner in Parks Canada.
Councillor Wilson.
I'm not sure it's been provided, but at some point, could council see a hierarchy of the JRCC and, like, you know, contribution from all parties?
Your worship, for Councillor Wilson, yeah, absolutely. The JRCC does have an organizational structure, and that's certainly something that we can turn around and bring to council as for information. That would also be something that would likely be presented to the Recovery Advisory Committee. But in any case, that's something that's known and that we can present to a future council meeting.
Thank you all. If there are no further questions for Mr. Given, I will go back to Councillor Waxer, who had been prepared to make a motion.
Okay, given that this recommended motion only addresses the opportunity for the Director of Recovery to make expenditures expediently, I'm very happy to make the motion that council authorize the Director of Recovery to make expenditures within the approved amounts under the Disaster Recovery Program application, and that council direct administration to bring forward updates to policy B-109 to provide differential spending authority for the Director of Recovery.
Thank you for that motion, Councillor Waxer. And now I find myself embarrassed to realize there's a question I should have asked. In the motion, it is expenditures with, okay, that's right, be approved. So not, so up to the 47, not the 73 at present, the amount that has been approved from the earlier submission.
Your worship, that's correct.
Thank you. Is there any debate on the motion? I will call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. There are none opposed. Thank you, Mr. Given, and thanks to Director Fark for bringing that forward.
Gave them not go there.
That takes us to agenda item 6.3, Director's Report, Community Development. It is winter somewhere, and Director Reed has joined us. Go ahead, Director Reed, if we have audio with you.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. Can you hear me?
We can.
Well, yes, indeed. So item 6.3 is Community Development Director's Report for the 1st of October. And just as we increase services in the return to core functions, or what we're calling business continuity within the whole municipality, but in community development, facilities and services have returned as cleaning and staffing have allowed. And so here below is a summary of our current status. Over in Wildflowers Childcare and out of school care, we reopened actually one of the first things way back on September 9th. With some reduced capacity, and we are ramping back up as the staff do return. Wildflowers and out of school care hosted a welcome back event for families on September 6th in the backyard. About 50 families attended, and we had mental health 211 counselor available on site for families that day. Wildflowers and out of school care offered free one-to-one sessions with the counselor for families on September 5th and 6th. And just as a common question I know that council often asks, we currently have 95 people on our wait list right now. 51 of those are either pregnant or planning to be pregnant, with the remaining 44 looking for spaces sometime in the next year, and about 5 to 10 of those who want care in the next few months. Over in the Activity Center, Parks and the Arena Curling, the Activity Center opened today. No access to the multipurpose hall, as that's where the Jasper Recovery Coordination Center is housed until they find permanent digs for as long as we need them. So that's 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. Saturday and Sunday. And we do have Glenda opening the concession too. I know that one of the questions was, where could school kids go to get lunch? And so that service is coming back up as well. Just a heads up, we do have a new offering, disc golf in Centennial Park. There are 3 baskets or holes that are set up. A map is being finalized, and so but that is available to residents right now. And we do have 3 sets of 2 people's worth of discs. So that includes the putter, the mid-range, and the distance driver available to borrow through the Activity Center front desk. Our downtown washrooms and log cabin washrooms are open again, dawn to dusk, 7 days a week. Arena and curling are still several weeks away from reopening. More information as soon as we have it, though, and Carlson is working on giving us an updated schedule. I'm really happy to say that through a great partnership with TGP, in fact, they approached us and they are sponsoring a community dinner on October 16th, and we'll be doing it in the curling rink as the JRCC is in the multipurpose hall. And so the seniors and families will start at 5 p.m. It's looking really good. I think it's ham as the primary meal or dish rather. Over to the Fitness and Aquatic Center. Fitness Center opened last Monday, and we've had 320 members and 110 drop-ins in our first week. And that's 6:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then again, 4 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Monday to Friday, and 9 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. Saturday and Sunday. The same note, the Aquatic Center is also still several weeks away from reopening. More information as soon as we do get it. Over into outreach, settlement, and mini CD, mini community development. The outreach team and settlement team, they open to the public 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday to Friday, including Red Cross and Service Canada on site Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And we are still seeing very elevated numbers of clients coming in. 224 in that first week when we were only open by appointment, and 228 in week 2 also only open by appointment. Now we're open, people can drop in, but 88 and 73 new clients each week. So we're still seeing demand that is very high and also with a bunch of new clients. Housing has shifted to the secondary issue with inquiries directly related to funding supports now rising to the top. And I'm proud and pleased to say that 100% of the clients who have come in have received some form of supports. And they did receive a one-to-one intake, and in the majority of cases, we are able to find appropriate sources of funding. We have recovery-specific outreach worker positions that council approved, I think, 2 weeks ago, and those positions are posted. They close just on October 3rd in a couple days here. And another exciting development as we return to business continuity, community conversations begin again on Wednesday. That's tomorrow. So adults 2 to 3 p.m. It's on Zoom. Seniors will be 3:30 to 4:30. And they're all on Zoom only now. Children and youth is next week from 12 to 1:30. All on Zoom, partly to accommodate what we fully expect to be larger numbers, and also with the large volume of people coming into the outreach office, the space issue, we need the boardroom right now. And I'm really impressed with Mini CD and the local immigration partnership. They're working really hard to support this increased community needs, both within their specific portfolios, but also in support of outreach and settlement, just doing that great frontline work. It's a really beautiful team over there, and they're working really hard. And finally, major projects. The activity center renovations are back and ongoing. The plaza concrete slab is complete. And certainly that one change is a real, I will say, source of inspiration. It's one of the things that we've all been waiting for. No more ramps into the curling, no more ramps into the childcare center, and no more ice buildup and puddles. And we've got 3 drains in that space. It's properly engineered now and really well done. So, you know, something as simple and straightforward as the plaza is actually a really great step forward for us. And we will get some more clarity on the schedule in the next few weeks as Carlson returns to full staffing. Commemoration Park project is nearly complete. So we have actually already a new toddler playground. The gazebo is 90% complete. 2 pergolas about to go up. More seating spaces, tables. The flagpoles are coming. We have 40 new planter boxes already in that park. And so once the construction is done and we can open those spaces to the public, we will. And just a final note, the skate park project is on hold until the spring, which will actually ensure that we get the best long-term build because the concrete won't be fighting with the frost. So that's what we came up with as our first stab at business continuity, and I'm happy to hear any questions that council might have.
Thank you for that report, Director Reid. Are there questions for Director Reid of council? Go ahead, Councillor Melvin.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I appreciate the details in the report. I see quite the wait list for our wildflowers daycare and out of school care. How many people that were in the program have we lost that are not returning? Would you have any idea of that off the top of your head?
Well, anecdotally, our wait list used to be 120 something, if I remember correctly. So that can give us an indication that we have some 30 families that perhaps haven't returned to the community yet. But we don't have that hard number in front of me.
Councillor Wilson? And Director Reed, as you know, I'm a big advocate of the Aquatic Center, and I'm very disheartened by the note here that it's several weeks away from reopening with little information attached to it. We were days away from opening prior to the fire. I understand there needs to be a clean. I would like to request what more is holding opening the Aquatic Center back as we kind of roll into the fall, winter. It's one of the few activities that children have access to. When we did re-enter, there was discussion that the pool would be, or the Aquatic Center would be open within 6 weeks, and now it's several weeks from now. I don't believe that a clean would inhibit us from opening for several weeks, as much of the other building, the rest of the building is open. So I do want to push on the Aquatic Center and find out what is holding it up. Is it still the partitions that Carlson is waiting on? Because I think we've kind of ran through those weeks and those partitions should be here and should be in. So anyway, could you speak a little bit more to the Aquatic Center? And are we pushing as hard as we can to get that reopened?
Certainly, Your Worship, through to Councillor Wilson. Very, very good questions, and I'm happy to provide clarity. The partitions actually are almost all the way finished. They were, continued to be on the delivery plan, and they did arrive, and Carlson has done a great job of getting those installed. And in fact, the 2 washrooms that we have available in the fitness center now are part of the new dressing rooms or change rooms, and they do have their partitions up. The actual challenge right now is it took about a week to set up the scaffolding in the pool space, and that scaffolding is there to do the remediation from the fire. So that is actually our holdup right now. That scaffolding is in place as the remediation teams do the cleaning of that the natatorium, or the big room where the pool exists. And that room, of course, has many nooks and crannies, and they're all high up. And so the scaffolding, if you haven't seen the photos from the report, it is quite the endeavor to have that room full of scaffolding. So it took a week to set that scaffolding up. It is estimated that there's a week of cleaning, and I'm, reverse engineering, that'll be another week to take the scaffolding down. At that point, then we get permission to go back in, and then we can begin to do all of our stuff. As soon as we can fill with water, we'll start filling. But with the scaffolding in the basin itself, that is a restriction I can't work around. But the team is in place and prepared to get to work as soon as that scaffolding is out and that room is released to us by the cleaning company. So that's the major holdup there. Carlson has done what they said they would do, and that facility is ready to go, other than that really the scaffolding and the cleaning with it. Does that answer your question, Councillor?
It does. A little disappointed that has just happened now, when it was stressed that it was one of the buildings that we did want to get open quite quickly after the re-entry. Definitely understand the timeline. Just want to confirm that there are active workers in there cleaning, and there will be no more delays.
Indeed, Your Worship, again through to Councillor Wilson, all of Council. So I, in fact, saw workers there yesterday, so I know that it is occurring, and we will absolutely do as quickly as we can. We do, of course, have to meet Alberta Health regulations on the the water clarity and quality, cleanliness, if you will. So those tests take time, at least a week, and so Once we get the water in, we start to circulate and filter, then we send those tests in. And so that's why I can fairly say we've got several weeks. We've got at least 2 more weeks of cleaning, scaffolding removal, and then at least a week to 2 of getting the facility going. So my goal is definitely as soon as we can. And I know that Jeremy and the team at the pool are champing at the bit, ready to go as well. It's all contingent on, like I say, that scaffolding getting out of the way. And as far as the prioritization, I do believe that the pressure was put on the prioritization of facilities, and the pool didn't make number 1 priority, partly because it took so much work to get it set up. And so you couldn't staff the whole town for all the work that had to be done with us and the schools and parks and everything. So that helps a little, I think, but I'm with you. I wish the pool was open yesterday. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. My question to you, Director Reid, I'm happy to see that the outreach office is open 10 till 3. Is the crisis team available out of those hours for residents? Are they back in action in Jasper?
Your worship, through to Councillor Hall. As far as I know, yes. However, I have not received confirmation of that. But that is one of the things that we are working with to try to ensure that our community has the full breadth of services that they need.
Councillor Waxer.
My question is, through you, Mayor Ireland, to Director Reid, under Wildflowers Childcare, it talks about 5 to 10 people wanting care in the next few months. And I wondered whether there are any families currently unable to access service who are on that waiting list, who wish they could be, who would prefer to be in now. I ask that because of the real concern around having numbers of people working in the tourism industry. It would be I'm just concerned about that.
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Councillor Waxer. Yes, there are some people who would like to be here as soon as possible. We don't believe there is any urgent emergency level. If I don't get childcare tomorrow, I can't work tomorrow. We believe we've covered all those, but should there be anybody who is interested in that level of expediency, then they should be sure to submit an application or update their current application so that Lisa and the team there know exactly what's up in our community. But as far as we know, the finger on the pulse is that we're doing well at meeting the needs that are emergent and current. Council may remember, just in a side note, that in the early childhood strategy, we do have an increased space angle that one of the pillars that we're working on is increasing space. And now that we're back to business continuity, we are picking up that ball as well and seeing about where and how much and who could fund any further space increases in the childcare center.
Thank you for that, Councillor Keller.
Thank you, Mara, to you, to Director Reid. It says here that the arena is several weeks away as well. Will the ice be in, and can people access the arena like they did last year, come totally with their children, ready just with their skates on? So I know hockey season, people are talking about when will the ice go in, or is all of this depending on when the dressing rooms are finished?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Keller-MP, if I understand the question correctly, will there be drop-in ice? There will be. As soon as we can make ice, there will be some drop-in ice time available. I didn't mention this as one of the bullets, but we have hired Brian Ewald to be our ice booking agent this year. So we have already, got in place the systems that we need to get tournaments back, as well as to create the booking structure that allows for public space to fit into school bookings, to fit into tournaments, to fit into minor hockey's needs. So it will come online as soon as possible. We know that won't be before the middle of October, based on the project work that has to be done still. but we're pushing again, the same push that we have. We're pushing both the arena and the pool to get them open as soon as possible.
So the dressing rooms totally completed for the arena, or will we go in without dressing rooms to start?
Without Carlson's final schedule, I can't say that for sure. Our goal is to have the dressing rooms ready as well. I don't know for sure, but we aren't contemplating any sort of trailers or temporary dressing room solution at this time. So without Carlson's schedule yet, I can't say exactly what that date is, but we're going for opening our facility.
Director Reed, under the outreach settlement and mini CD portion of your report, there are two references to clients coming in. Can you just comment on whether all the client services are in person, or is community development also dealing with residents who continue to be displaced and offering service to them, and so they are coming in by telephone, something of that nature?
Thank you, Your Worship. These numbers are, clients we saw in Jasper for the large part. There are about 10 to 15% of our regular clients that are still displaced from the community, which we are, yes, still reaching out to as they need. But this is 85% to 90% of these numbers are people who have come in. Even when we were open, it was when the doors were closed, we were open by appointment. So each of these people represents a face-to-face interaction for 85 to 90% of them.
Thank you for that, but confirming that displaced residents still have access to local services.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that clarity.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Director Reed regarding his report? Might I have a motion then that council receive the report for information? Councillor Melvin, thank you for that. All those in favor? There are none opposed, and just for the record, Councillor or Deputy Mayor DeMota was absent for that vote. That takes us to agenda item 7, notices of motion. There are none. Agenda item 8, councillor reports. Are there any reports of various councillors? I can report globally that 6 councillors, with the exception of Councillor Calabranti, who remained in town to manage affairs and be prepared in the event of another emergency. The rest of us, with CAO Given and Director Sanders, attended the Alberta Municipalities Conference in Red Deer last week. I won't go into the various sessions that I attended. I did present at one session about crisis communications, attended other sessions, but spent much of the time in discussions with ministers, and all of council and our directors attended a meeting with the Minister of Municipal Affairs, the Honorable Rick McIver, and a good number of his staff. Had a good discussion about ongoing matters, including disaster relief programming and our submission for other costs for loss of our own revenues, and including trying to advance the temporary or interim housing solutions that we are all speaking about. So a number of great discussions with those people. Councillor Melnick and CAO Given and myself also met with the leader of the opposition and I think 6 members of that caucus. Again, just positioning Jasper and focusing primarily on our need for recognition as a tourism-based community with the special needs that we have in that regard, and just underscoring that as a tourism-based community, we are particularly vulnerable to emergencies such as wildfire, because not only have we experienced loss of structures and loss of tax revenue, our economy has been severely impacted and will continue to be impacted for the number of months, as we discussed earlier, just given that the ski season is significant, but underscoring our ongoing efforts with other communities to get designated as a tourism-based community with funding to fall, recognizing that even pre-fire, we were spending 31.8% of our expenditures on visitor-facing infrastructure and services. And all of that impacts our ability to help the province achieve its tourism goals and its GDP goals. I will leave it to other councillors to comment on their experience at Alberta municipalities. I can say that Jasper was certainly highly recognized, that there were lots of comments, lots of support, and lots of credit given to our staff and our community for the way it responded to the events of July 22nd to 24th, and that was all very welcome for all of us. Other councillors wish to add to that or provide their own reports? Councillor Mellon?
Thank you, Your Worship. I did attend, as you mentioned. I did go down a day early as well and completed the fourth of the elected officials education program courses. But what I think would be appropriate in that I only have completed 4. Congratulations are appropriate to 2 of our council members, including Deputy Mayor Demoda and Councillor Hall, who completed all 7 of the required courses and were recognized, along with 2,600 other elected officials in the province who completed the program this year. So congratulations on behalf of all of council to our fellow council members.
Thank you for that. Yes, congratulations to Deputy Mayor Demoda and Councillor Hall for that recognition, and there's a picture of them on the stage with their certificates. Are there other council reports? Right, if not, I can turn to agenda item 9.1, upcoming events. We have our annual organizational meeting set for October 22nd. I can advise the council that I have been invited to speak at an event in Ottawa on that day, invited by the Minister of the Environment responsible for Parks Canada. An invitation I thought I ought to accept, which means that I will be away for the organizational meeting unless we choose to adjust the date in any way. But in anticipation that that may not be the case, I would just remind councillors that the organizational meeting is the time for appointment to various committees. So if you could let me know in advance what committees may be inactive and if any, and could be removed from our list, and otherwise let me know your preferences for committee assignments. I can be prepared and find some way to manage that through the organizational meeting, which unfortunately I might miss because my attendance in Ottawa. Are there any other upcoming events that should be brought to the attention of council, Councillor Hall?
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. It's not yet on the calendar, but I'm hoping that the JRCC might have a place somewhere else for our community Christmas party in December. I'm hoping that we have one.
Because we're saying,
So something.
If there is nothing further, that takes us to agenda item 9.2, which was added by way of amendment to our agenda, an in-camera session. I am going to be so bold as to assume that there will be no business arising from that in-camera discussion regarding a legal matter.
Correct.
So for those of us in the gallery and those watching online, I will ask for a motion to move in camera in the next couple of minutes. When we revert to open session, it will be only for adjournment. There will be no further business discussed. So I thank all of you for attending today and assure you that there will be no business that you miss by logging off now. With that, I would ask for a motion to have council move in camera at 11:05 a.m. Councillor Waxer, thank you for that. All those in favor? There are none opposed. We shall move in camera, and I will call the recess and then we can be here in camera.